Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and I'm here to review Jason Reitman's new film, The Frontrunner. And I was super excited about this film because now that Hugh Jackman's done being Wolverine, it's like I have to look forward to the films that he does differently besides the X-Men films. And this is his first film that came out since The Greatest Showman, and I was excited to see what he did in this role as Gary Hart, who's this presidential candidate whose whole campaign gets derailed because he gets caught having an affair. And this film deals with the big idea, should your private life matter in politics? Or even in public life in general? Should the things that you say and what you're going to do for society trump what's actually what you do with your private life? And should that be any influence? And this film deals with that on a very big level, but not as deeply or emphatically as you probably would have liked this film to do. I was wondering why this was getting such middle of the road kind of reviews. I feel like Jason Reitman does a really good job of putting this film together. He is a very talented artist. He's a great director. I've seen some great films out of him. This one wasn't one of them, but I can say it's inspired. There's some camera shots in this film that are fantastic, especially towards the beginning. There's one sequence where you're following these group of people and the camera keeps zigging around, catching the attention of somebody, and you get drawn off because you feel like a fly in a wall in this film. And that's really your point in this film, is you're seeing all the background kind of stuff going on to a political campaign. And the thing is, if you're expecting to get a whole lot of like spending time with Hugh Jackman and really getting into his character, it's not really what this film's about. And that was surprising to me and kind of threw me off because honestly, you spend a lot more time with journalists and campaign people than you do with Gary Hart. And I don't know if I really liked that part of this movie, and it felt like it was kind of wasting its potential premise. I understand the fact that it was trying to go for, look, he wants to be private. You as an audience, you don't get to get inside him either. And we are basically from the perspective of his campaign people, or these journalists who are pushed away just as everybody else are. And like, it does that well, but the thing is, then you're just stuck listening to a bunch of political jumbo. And that's basically most of the dialogue in this film. And like, they do a good job of making it snarky and flying off and great dialogue in that way. But the thing is, you're still just centered around people just throwing a bunch of political BS around the whole entire movie for the most part. And if you're not really into that, this movie's going to alienate you. And I feel like it probably did alienate a lot of people because you expect this drama of this man dealing with this very tough situation and this big idea, and the film doesn't really take a stance on it. There's even one point where J.K. Simmons' character is just like, I don't know. He asks himself a question, he's like, I don't know the answer to this. And like, the film doesn't either. And the film doesn't try to answer it. And it kind of just feels like it just throws questions. It feels like a bunch of prompts. And it really doesn't take the initiative to try to like answer any of these prompts. And I feel like that's the weakness of this film and kind of brings this film down. But in terms of the actual, like, the pacing's great. This is very snappy. It keeps going. You're going through each scene very smoothly. It's edited well. And there's a lot of momentum throughout the film. Do you feel super emotionally connected to a lot of this stuff? Not really, because you're fly on the wall. You kind of feel at a distance, and that makes it harder for you to connect with the film. And you don't really get to see a whole lot of, like, in terms of characters, like Gary Hart's at arms, like he's a very he's an interesting person and takes a very interesting stance, but he's kind of just a stance. But Hugh Jackman does a great job of portraying him. He brings some fire, he brings some passion to this role. And if it wasn't Hugh Jackman, this film could have felt even more flat. Vera Farmiga kind of is wasted. She doesn't get a whole lot to do until the very end of the film, but when she does, she shows why she's an amazing actress. J.K. Simmons was one of the most consistently great things throughout this film because he's just snarky and fun the whole entire time until he does have to be serious, and he really sells it. And that's some of the strengths of this film, is there are other things in this film that pick things up and carry it throughout the film. But the rest of it's kind of just like, here's an idea, here's an idea, here's an idea, here's some snappy political dialogue, here's some journalism dialogue. Let's sit in circles and just jar with each other the whole entire time. And there's a lot of that in this film, and it gets repetitive and it gets a little uninteresting after a while. And this film could have been a lot more. It could have been much more. And I feel like the film's a little squandered. But in general, I had a good time. I enjoyed it for what it was. If you're really into politics, this thing will probably really grab your attention, because you'll be like, yes, this is my shit. But if you're just somebody that thought that this was like an interesting drama, like a human drama dealing with those kinds of issues, it's really not. It's more of a conceptual idea and throwing different things at the wall and seeing if the audience picks up on anything and wants to make a conclusion. But it really doesn't take the courage of making a stance on its own, so it feels a little bit wasted. But in general, I think it's a fine film. If this seems like something that would pique your interest in terms of like the politics and stuff, go check it out. And if not, then this probably isn't for you, and I'll give it a pass. But thank you as always for checking in with your Wasteland reviewer.